Vietnam, I think, is one of the most interesting investment regions. It's got a huge, young, dynamic workforce, and it's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. It's also benefited from companies diversifying their supply chains from China. Now, it's not that easy for investors to access, but there are 3 investment trusts: Vietnam Enterprise Investments, Vietnam Holding Fund, and Vietnam Opportunities Fund. They've all done very well in 2021, but I'm interested to see what they'll do in 2022.
For 2022, I'm going to see how Shell and BP go with their energy transition plans. Obviously, we've had the call for Shell to be broken up into a green company and a less green company. Don't think that'll happen, but definitely we'll see more focus on their hydrogen and carbon capture projects, which are billions and billions of dollars. And right now, we're not clear on what those returns are going to be.
2021 was another strange year for UK property. House prices rocketed again, and you would have been hard-pressed to lose money from a real estate investment trust. Even the house builders finished in the green, despite rising investor concerns about inflation, supply chains, and the end of Help to Buy. In 2022, it's harder to see how the rise in property valuations can continue at the same pace and so broadly. It will probably pay for investors to be more selective and lower expectations for returns.
The big event for me in 2022 is how the economic policy mix develops in the UK. That might sound quite dry, but I think there is the potential for some pretty unusual outcomes now that inflation has backed policymakers into a corner. Base rates have started to rise, the near-term outlook is rapidly dimming, and we've got to bear in mind as well that some fiscal policy support will be removed next year. At the same time, inflation is looking pretty sticky, not least if the Omicron variant causes more supply chain issues. So we could be looking at a high inflation, low growth environment in the UK in 2022.
So I'm really interested in following what developments there are going to be in blockchain in 2022. You all have heard of crypto markets, and it's a bit of a wild west, but the underlying technologies are really fascinating. We're already seeing certain banks using blockchain technology to help settle and verify transactions. I think this could be a big growth area for the next 10, 20 years.
One thing I think may be particularly interesting next year is how the accounting for sustainability develops. Last year we saw the IFRS, the main international accounting board, take on the work of a number of different organisations, and in an attempt to really put a number on a lot of the sustainability issues which we are seeing more and more companies address. This could really alert investors to the externalities faced by many different companies in these areas, and also quantify the risks.
I'll be keeping an eye on what city law firms are doing over the next 12 months. Recent research suggests there might be a slew of legal listings in 2022, so it'll be interesting to see if they actually materialise, and if they do, what that means for investors. One interesting area to look at might be whether partner interests and shareholder interests can ever truly align. I'm also curious to see how the relationship between listed litigation funders and solicitors firms develop over the next 12 months.
Investment trusts have been enormously popular this year, raising 14.3 billion in the first 11 months of 2021. That's the highest level we've seen in 13 years. Many of these names operate in popular areas like renewable infrastructure, and their shares in many cases trade on big premiums to the value of underlying assets. I'll be watching these names carefully to see if they take longer than expected to put all of that new money to work. If they do, we might see share prices come off and see them trade at more attractive prices.
These are tricky markets. We remain in the grip of a pandemic, and stemming from that are multiple issues which are generally not good for business, such as supply chain difficulties and inflation. Even with further rate rises from the Bank of England and in the US next year, inflation will stick around, and both of these mean that margins will be under pressure for a lot of companies. Although many analysts feel confident that earnings will stay positive in 2022. Positive, but muted. We should expect market turbulence to continue, and investors really should be looking for quality companies with resilient earnings. But the problem is you have to pay through the nose for that. It's a question of being diligent in your research and having conviction in your holdings beyond all the current noise.